I am delighted to welcome here. We've got Denzyl, Feigelson, and Troy Carter, the men behind two of the most interesting companies to come up over recent years. And I have to say, when we started thinking about putting this event together, I thought, wouldn't it be great to get these guys together? And I was just actually checking. This is the first time you've done an interview together. That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Thank you both so much for agreeing to do this. Before we get into the substance of the whole debate, I do want to spend a little bit of time introducing the pair of you so people kind of understand who you are and what you do, and kind of appreciate the similarities and also, I guess, the differences between what you're doing, because we've often kind of compared your companies and certainly a similar level of intrigue, I think, when both of your companies appeared as to exactly what you're up to and taking a slightly different approach to things. So Denzyl, you started Platoon first, so I guess we'll start with you. Quick bit of background. Most significant stuff that people might know, you launched AWOL 16 years before you sold it onto Cobalt. Was that right? That was
18, I think. 1997. Right. 1997.
Okay. Yeah. And you worked on Paul Simon's Graceland. You're very well known for working with Apple for 2 decades, and of course Apple bought Platoon a couple of years ago. You had early success with Georgia Smith, Billie Eilish, of course. Was she really 14, by the way, when you worked?
She was.
With her? Wow.
She was. End of 2015, 2016, she was 14.
What was that like? I mean, wasn't that a little bit scary working with a 14-year-old?
Billie, beyond her years, she was amazing as a 14-year-old. She was just concerned about writing good songs with Phineas and getting them out there, and wonderful family around her with Maggie and her dad and her 2 managers. So it was just she was very just focused already at age 14. So
yeah. No, well, and then you've worked with Princess Nokia, Pooh Bear, Aaron Smith, and many more. And so, yeah, maybe let's just start with you, Denzyl. Just tell us a little bit about why you set up Platoon, what were the aims, and how that may have sort of changed over the last few years that you've been running the company.
Yeah. Firstly, Troy, this is a pleasure. I've really appreciated all the kind words that you've mentioned about me and Platoon and all of our works, and it's a definite mutual admiration society going on with the 2 of us. Every time we see each other, it's just like we've no time apart. So first of all, so yeah, I as you mentioned, I'm originally from South Africa. I got kicked out for politics in 1972, I'm very lucky to work within the South African music industry for many years, even as a young kid. And as you mentioned before, I launched AWOL in 97 after being a personal manager for many years in LA. I think it was just the internet got me going. And I just realized that, I wanted to try something different. And I had artists at the time who just couldn't get record deals. And so the internet to me felt like a place I could use to get my friends distributed. And that was the early days of AWOL. And, we decided to make it a very easy 1-page agreement, that kind of thing. So that's stuff of legends. And then I went on through AWOL because I had AWOL. I was lucky enough to meet Steve Jobs in 2001 and started working with him, and was there for the lucky seat of all that evolution of technology, and from the iPod to iTunes, and then I moved to England in 2004 to launch iTunes, but all in the same time, just continuously working with artists and looking for ways of helping artists. And then around the end of 2015, 2016, just in listening to artists and meeting several artists who just weren't ready for a major, weren't ready for what we call now an aggregator, or and we're pretty happy to live in a community of SoundCloud at the time, because at that time, you know, it felt like a community, and people could get interaction, they could share files, and that inspired me to put a stake in the ground and just go, well, maybe there's something else here again. And as serendipity and karma would have it, you know, you decide on a vision and you put a stake in the ground, and then, you know, Billie Eilish knocks on your door, and Teflon Don and other people. So we were very, very serendipitous to have a really great run of artists in Platoon. You know, Billy, Rexo C, Steph, Yeba, you know, just a wonderful group of artists. And our idea was to build a team and look at what can we do when we did find that fearless artist. You know, what could we do in ensuring that that artist remained inspired and did their best work, and was just left alone to do the work and to hone their craft and to put in their hours, and then our job would be to take that, build creative services around that. My vision was to build I really wanted to build a creative team, because that's my passion, is, you know, how do you take that music and build creativity around that, from videos to social media to all that kind of thing. So that was my ultimate goal, was to almost build sort of a creative agency within Platoon. And so that was it. And, you know, we did all the things that you do as a bootstrap startup. You raise money, and then you try and figure it out, and then you try and raise more money, and then you try and raise more money.
And then you get bought by Apple.
Yes, and that to me, you know, was just a wonderful moment in time, because I have this long, wonderful history with Apple. Just a very creative relationship over 20 years almost, really focusing on creativity. So it was just, again, one of those serendipitous moments, and it was either that or go and, you know, just be that CEO that's dialing for dollars. And Troy knows this better than anybody else. You know, when you start companies, it takes time. You know, AWOL took me 18 years to build and to resell and to sell on, and lots of partners. And, you know, luckily at AWOL, we never raised any money, because it was a good idea from day one. And it was, you know, many years had gone by where we were profitable. So we didn't have to raise money. So the sale really just allowed me to chill, and allowed me to have a partner that realized our ethos, and realized that I wanted to build creative services, and I wanted to build, you know, things that I couldn't do as a bootstrap startup, you know, things like healthcare and things like legal and accounting service, you know, just little things that are so necessary for an artist, and build a very strong creative team, and do some of our own creative work, and have the ability to make awesome creative and awesome videos, and really understand the DNA of artists and help them build campaigns. So they've afforded Platoon that amazing partnership, and that's why, you know, life for me has changed over the last 2 years, because now I'm able to just go to work. You know, I can just you know, work with great artists and get the work done, and all that. I don't have to be, you know, doing that entrepreneurial thing, which I've done my whole life. And I'm still, of course, have so many things in the fire, but I'm now at a stage in life where I just really want to build, and on top of what we already have. So
cool. Thanks a lot for that, Denzyl. And Troy, let's come to you. You go back, I guess, as the boss of Atom Factory. You managed Lady Gaga. That's the thing that, you know, everyone kind of is aware of. Whereas Denzyl has the relationship with Apple. You've got the relationship with Spotify. You were the head of creative services there, global head of creative services. You've been involved in developing the careers of John Legend, Lindsay Sterling, Meghan Trainor, Charlie Puth. You founded other startups. You've been involved in investment funds that have invested in some of the biggest names in the tech space: Uber, Lyft, Dropbox, and Spotify. And then was it just May last year that you founded Q&A? It seems like sort of ages ago, but time's getting distorted.
April of last year.
Wow. So yeah, just tell us a little bit, please, about you know, what is Q&A, why you set it up, what the aims were.
Great. And well, first of all, you know, Denzyl and I, we actually connected through when I was managing Lady Gaga, and when Denzyl was doing the iTunes Festival in London. And, so the relationship goes back to like really digging in on creative. And, so where, a lot of companies that you work with, it's transactional and it's, you sort of sign a deal and show up. But, what I loved about working with Denzyl from back then that sort of carried on till this day was the appreciation for artists, and an appreciation for ideas and creativity and quality, even down to Denzyl put me on to, Bowers and Wilkins, which is my favorite audio brand, when I was in London. So, so I think that setting that up is important, just so like when we think about sort of the mission that we're on now is just really continuous of the mission that we were on then. And, and even prior to, to us meeting, that's a mission that, I had been on it, pretty much since I was a kid, so when I left Spotify, well, transitioning from artist manager into Spotify, I kind of, was figuring out, I'd done artist management for almost 20 years and wanted a shift. And, and at that time I was working with Daniel on a project within Spotify. And, that conversation led into this idea around building out creator services. But while I was in there, it gave me a chance to really learn a lot about independent music, independent artists. Prior to that, I worked mostly, with major labels, on major label artists. But it gave me an appreciation for the entrepreneurship around it, with the artists individually, and also with those companies that they were working with as well. And but it also gave me a chance to look at sort of what tools were missing from the ecosystem, and what those needs were, and then having a team that really understood it at its core in terms of, okay, when you're building something for an artist, as a company, there's a certain amount of psychological safety that needs to go into the product. I know the calls you get in the middle of the night to wonder, okay, did my song get released? Is it the right version? All of these things. So we started working on distribution software and so we're in beta on right now. So, and then also we acquired and merged with a company called Human Resources, which was Jay Irvin's company. And who's my best friend I grew up with in Philly since we were kids. And it was really, Jay was a manager for his entire career. And it was about how do you take sort of this level of the skills from management and apply that through the lens of distribution. So, so a lot of it is, working alongside of great managers and being able to be, a support system for them, but also working alongside of great artists and being able to have, just that patient artist development, centric approach that it takes 3 to 4 years to break artists. So it's like, you want partners that are going to really be in it for that long and invest, the time and the resources into it as well.
So, I mean, you're both essentially providing artist development type services in the context of an age where I guess you would both argue the power has really shifted towards artists, right? And that you have to be a little bit more flexible in terms of the kind of services and the way that you provide the services and teams that artists need these days. Is that right, would you say?
Well, I think, both Troy and I know all too well how the world works. And that is every artist is a complete unique DNA. And, what I've learned over my time, there's just not one way that works for every artist. And I think the power has always been in artists, and I've been an artist manager since the early 90s. But the world has changed and technology has changed. And We now have these powerful little devices in our hands that we didn't have then. And that's what's made the biggest change, is this access. And so when you deal with artists, you know, it's that they have a message and they have something they want to say, and they have a fan base out there. They have a tribe. And our job is to just help them connect with that tribe that's already looking for them. And there's just no one way of doing that. There's just a way of like squeezing the artist and going, who are you? What are you made of? And how can we help? You know, so that's what I've learned over time, especially now, because it's actually, in many ways, it's hard because of this access, because anyone's making music, so much music's getting put up. And that's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just is. So it's just a matter of, you know, how can you help these incredibly talented beings that have this message to impart to the world with their melodies and songs and their lyrics? You know, how can you help them get their word out?
And being prepared to be flexible.
I definitely agree. Like, you know, when I hear that idea, you know, the stat that came out recently about, I think it's, you know, this idea around, you know, it's not the top 40 anymore. It's about, you know, the top 43,000. You know, it's, you know, and on one side, you know, it's definitely great. More artists are getting heard. But in terms of being able to have people go deep on artists, you know, and to be able to make sure that that artists can actually build a career, and people can invest the time. Because, you know, that's the thing. When you're building fans and you're really building that relationship between fans and an artist, it's a tremendous amount of time invested from that fan into that artist, and vice versa. Yeah. And so, you know, what I'm thinking a lot about is like, you know, so what are those mechanisms, you know, if playlists are churning quicker and quicker now, and, you know, people are moving through songs faster and faster. And, you know, and on top of that, we're competing with, you know, with Fortnite, with Netflix, with Instagram, with TikTok, you know, from a time perspective, you know, so how are we partnering up with those types of platforms? How are we finding new ways to connect those fans with those artists and vice versa? But, you know, if there's one thing that keeps me up at night is really thinking about, you know, what are those ways to keep it sticky?
You, Troy, you talked about those platforms when you spoke at Nylon earlier in the year, in January, and we were talking about the context of the major labels there, and because I think this has always been an interesting one. It's like, you know, some people, I guess, might see that, you know, are you trying to kind of, you know, tread on their toes and put, you know, be an alternative to major labels? But it seems to me that you're kind of both working with those major labels. That's point one. In terms of, you know, there's always, is there sort of always still a role for those kind of players? And then question two is related to that point about Netflix, and you mentioned Disney Plus actually at Nylon, and talked about how you were surprised that the majors hadn't pulled their content from the main streaming services and developed their own direct-to-consumer offerings. So yeah, I just wanted to get a little bit of a comment around the role of major labels, and then hear a little bit more about that thought about you know, the whether the majors should be doing their own direct-to-consumer offerings.
Well, you know, I think it's really, you know, when I was making that statement, the context of it was really, you know, as a company being able to control your own destiny. You know, so you know, you think about Disney Plus, for instance, and, you know, the position that that Disney was in with Netflix in terms of, okay, this is, we're a supplier to this company, but also, you know, it's starting to look competitive. And a good example is when you look at Milan that Disney just released, and you look at, let's call it Drake or Post Malone or Justin Bieber would be Universal's equivalent of a Milan when, you know, when you think about big ticket priority for that particular year. when Universal can put out a Post Malone record that will only reach 10 to 15% of his audience within that first week, and then sort of week over week it may diminish, right? And versus Disney Plus, which they released Milan, and it's top billing on their platform, and they're going to make sure that it's a priority. In the same way if Netflix releases a Will Smith movie or or Stranger Things, or whichever their top priority may be at that particular time. So as a content provider and a distributor, a platform, you get to pick what your priorities are versus, the opposite, where somebody else chooses the priority on your behalf and then can see the amount of audience that it may penetrate that week. So that's why I was surprised that the labels hadn't gotten to that point yet.
What do you think about this, Denzyl? And I guess you are owned by Apple, so that's going to have some kind of connotation.
Yeah, we are, but part of the magic of it all is that we wanted to maintain our independence, because it's important to artists to not just be part of one platform.
Sure.
For now, I totally see Troy's point, and he's right. Things will change, because you can see, and especially in a COVID world, things are going to change even more in order for artists to reach their fans. And things, people are in times like these, new innovative ways will come out of trying to reach more fans. To me, I feel like we're just all brands swimming in the same soup. Labels. I look at the charts, at least in the UK, and there's one or two independents on the chart, maybe every week. And my goal is like, well, why is that? Mm. And so that's where I look at and I go, okay, well, I'd love to see some of my artists on those charts. And what do I have to do that? What kind of numbers do you reach? And, so I do think about those things as, why is it just this stream of 50 tracks or 100 tracks all, on the major side? And you realize that they know how to play their game. They've perfected it over the last 70, 80 years really well. And they're
music hasn't changed. So you could take Georgia or Billy, or, you think about the artists are exactly the same. The quality of music is exactly the same. And then when you look at because I do the same thing. I look at charts and I look at playlists and I look at independents versus majors on those lists, and it's just incredibly disproportionate.
Yeah. And so, and that's, and that's a good challenge for us to see. And, but we've all had relationships with them over time, and it's good. This is all very healthy, and we're a very independent-minded company, and we need to stay that way. And it's really about, how do we help an artist build a business? Because if you help an artist build a successful business, right? Not just a sustainable business, but a super successful business, and you're partners with that artist, then, so that's where we started looking. How do we help this artist build a business? And in the early days of Platoon, we did all kinds of weird and wonderful things to try and, figure that out. We started paying artists weekly so that they wouldn't have to get into this advanced recoup cycle, which is a tough one, but it's a necessary one. And we started, looking at, helping the artists with their business, and they're giving them spreadsheets, and how much money do you need to live, and how do you, all those kinds of things that you start thinking, because there is a right brain, left brain thing that happens with artists. And I know that from being a manager and being an artist myself. I just happened to be the one in the band that always took care of business, but the other people just didn't care. It just wasn't in their nature. And there is a lot of that in artists. And now we need to kind of build there's a new generation of artists who are seeing the making of money just as creative as the making of music. And that's what's exciting to us at this moment in time, this new generation of artists who have something to say and do understand that, they need to have successful businesses.
Do you see, I guess you both sides have been focusing a little bit more on kind of newer artists and developing artists, but with the more established artists who, you know, maybe have been built up with major labels behind them, are they getting more options as well these days in terms of, you know, who might be financing their activities and who might be backing them as well? As we, you know, I think, again, I'm thinking back to you, Troy, at Nylon. I think, you know, talking about the likes of bigger artists like Drake, where you might get, you know, someone coming and just buying out with a huge amount of money that might be hard for someone like Universal to compete with, you know, to back them. Do you see that those more established artists are going to get more and more options from diverse players?
Yeah, you know, when you look at music as an asset class, you know, it becomes very attractive because of the predictability. You know, when you have catalog, and especially when you have history, and you see like what Merck has been able to do in terms of catching
hypnosis,
yeah, with hypnosis is. I think he caught the industry off guard with his approach, and I think it was brilliant execution in terms of how he's done it, and it's a game that, you know, it's basically like how Netflix caught the studios off guard. Because it was this history of the way business had been done, and for him to come in so aggressively. And I think the markets, whether it's, you know, private equity or public markets or pension funds and things along those lines, are seeing that, you know, this is a real asset class, and is no different from the, you know, if it's royalties from artists like a Drake or Adele or a Taylor or a Gaga, you know, just these big superstar artists, all the way down to, you know, artists who may have a couple of hits under their belts. So I think there's going to be these different models that are in place. We're seeing the money show up for it, and the technology is there as well in terms of, you know, all of the data. So I think it's inevitable. You know, going back to one of the things Denzyl was saying about that 80-year history of record labels is something that's very, very, very important still, though. So, you know, is a certain level of security that comes with, when I release this record, I have people around the world on the ground in these markets that are going to work my records. And some artists still need that. And then there's some artists who, I know labels who don't do any work in specific territories, and those artists are successful in streaming in those territories. And that's basically just off of, you know, just the nature of social and hard work of teams sometimes, and artists are just great at marketing. And so, yes, I think that's the cohort of artists that may get there first, that kind of figure out, okay, you know what, the US label or the UK label or the Australian label might have been the core of it, but sort of rest of the world was kind of done on its own. Maybe I can take this swing and try it myself.
Oh, that's true. And, you know, in our days of managing, we wouldn't, you know, we weren't thinking of having some of those label services in-house, but I can truly see now that managers are having, you know, their offices are busy. They've got a digital person, they've got an international person, they've got a creative person, they've got a you know, technology person. The data and the analytics and the amount of information you get, you know, is so fantastic these days, you know, from Spotify for artists, from Apple Music for artists, from Pandora for artists, and you start amalgamating all this incredible data, and you've really got some tools on your hand if you know how to read it. And you've got people on your team, you know, luckily for me, if you take my age away, you know, the average age on my team is like 24 years old. And it's lucky for me because, you know, these amazing people they live in this world now. and they don't know. No, you know, in my day, if you told somebody, you know, in managing artists in the 80s, you know, everything was a bit of a slog. But now there's just this access and these ideas, and people come and say, Denzyl, look, I can figure out, we can do this, and we can watch this, and we can add all this data to this, and you can, you know, and then if you really read that, and so I see managers now just really having those services in-house. And I think
do enough management companies really understand how to use that properly, though? Do you think they?
Yeah, some do and some don't. Yeah, I mean, that's really the case. But yes, the ones that do are the ones that are shining. And, you know, there's some amazing.
Especially the younger managers. Like, we're meeting a lot of young managers who are just way ahead. Like,
they're way ahead. Way ahead of us, even. And we're, you know, exactly. The two of us put us together, we're pretty smart. But these kids are just really.
They're way ahead.
Yeah.
So all of this wouldn't it make you sort of slightly worried if you were sitting in running a major label these days, because you're sort of seeing that power shift, the data's shifting, the money's shifting? Isn't that a little bit of a threatening landscape?
I don't know. I'm not sitting inside. I don't think so. I think they're smart enough to adapt. They may be slow to adapt, but I think they're smart enough to adapt. Some of, you know, the executives I know, I think, look at this, but if you think about it too, it's about the money too. You know, they tend to follow the money, and right now the money is flowing again at the majors, I think. I don't know. Maybe you know, Troy, but it seems to be flowing.
It's really flowing.
So, you know, when the money's flowing, everything's good. When the money's not flowing, then people start getting a little scratchy.
Right.
And right?
And, you know, and I think it's, you know, where managers, you know, of course, you know, being a manager, I have, you know, an affinity towards managers. And, you know, just because I could naturally empathize and connect to, you know, what their role is. And I think, you know, it's been, you know, it's this sort of control friction point, right? You know, to labels' credits, they invest an extreme amount of money into an artist when they sign an artist. And with managers, we invest an extreme amount of time. So it's not like it's a capital expense for us. You know, sometimes we have to put up money here and there, but for the most part, it's time, you know, in the beginning versus money. And the label is money usually versus time. And so with that being said, what I notice is that labels want to control, you know, access a lot of times, and can get territorial. And managers, by nature, I say we because I feel like I'm always the manager. You know, we could be territorial as well. But I feel like if we look at, managers have always been in the 360, I'm in this with this artist on everything. From, we are going to be broke together and eat ramen, and we're going to sleep on that apartment floor, and we're going to help build this business together, essentially. And so, you know, that's where you see that sort of long arc in that close relationship. And labels tried to get into that same business without providing that service or investing that time. So I think if labels get serious about investing that time and making that level of a commitment that managers make, I think they could be in the artist business even deeper. You know, so, you know, and of course, you know, remove any sort of conflicts or double dipping or things along those lines. But I do think there's a longer term model where the label's role starts to evolve and change.
Okay, there were so many more questions that I wanted to ask you both, but we've run out of time. And me, as the overall timekeeper, I have to be the one that sticks to time as well. Yeah. So I'm gonna have to wrap it up there, and basically just thank you both enormously for taking. I know that you don't do so many of these things, so we're really privileged to have you both take time out to do this. Thanks so much, and I hope that we'll be hearing more from you. I'm sure Music Ally will be in touch with you soon. but very soon again to hear more from both of you. Best of luck with everything, and thanks so much for taking part. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Troy.